It was 11:50 a.m. when everything went quiet. The conference room that had been buzzing with investors, lawyers, and flashing camera lights just an hour ago now looked like a battlefield. Papers scattered, screens frozen, and faces pale with disbelief. Federal agents stormed the glass doors of Titan Corp, shouting, "Everyone step away from your devices." I stood frozen near the window, watching as a $240 million buyout I had built with blood and sleepless nights went up in smoke. Just 2 hours before that, at 9:50 a.m., my COO, Mark Daniels, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're done here, Ethan. Pack your things." My heart dropped. The room spun. I had poured 7 years into this company. I built the software that landed us the buyout deal. I was the brain behind the empire, and now, with one cold sentence, I was thrown out like trash. What Mark didn't know was that firing me that morning would trigger a chain reaction that would bring the entire $240 million deal crashing down and put the company under federal lockdown by lunch. The agents cuffed Mark. Cameras clicked. Reporters screamed questions. And me? I just stood there, watching him get dragged away, my lips curving into the smallest, most dangerous smile I'd worn in my life. What happened in those 2 hours is something I'll never forget. If you're watching this, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear is not just a revenge story, it's a war. My name is Ethan Cole, 33 years old, a software architect, married to Sarah, the only woman who ever believed in me when the world thought I was dreaming too big. We have a daughter, Lily. She's 7, and every smile she gives me is a reminder of why I fight so hard. I wasn't born rich. I came from a small neighborhood in Ohio, where my father worked at a steel factory and my mother sold handmade candles just to keep the lights on. When I joined Titan Corp, it was nothing more than a struggling startup with 2 employees and a dream. I gave it everything, my weekends, my health, my peace. I created a cybersecurity system so advanced that even the Department of Defense had reached out to us for collaboration. That's what brought in the investors. That's what led to the $240 million buyout deal. But I was too blind to see that behind the smiles, the people I trusted were plotting my downfall. Mark Daniels, the CEO, was charming in public, but a snake in private. He'd take my work, my code, my ideas, and present them as his own. At first, I ignored it. That's how the corporate world works, Sarah told me gently once. But when I found out that Mark had secretly changed the patent name of my security program to his own before the buyout announcement, something inside me snapped. I confronted him in his office that morning. "Mark, I know what you did," I said, my voice trembling. He looked up, smirking. "It's business, Ethan. You should have read the fine print. You stole my code." He leaned back, eyes cold. "I stole your future." Then came the final blow. He fired me on the spot. At 9:50 a.m., I walked out of Titan Corp with nothing but my laptop and rage burning through my veins. But what Mark didn't know was that I had one last trick left, a digital heartbeat buried deep in Titan Corp's system, something no one else could find. At 10:05 a.m., I logged into a secure server I had created years ago. My hands shook as I typed. Every keystroke felt like justice. Within minutes, I activated a system audit script meant to expose illegal financial transfers hidden inside the buyout deal. Transactions Mark thought he'd buried forever. By 10:50 a.m., that script had already flagged multiple fraud indicators. By 11:30 a.m., the FBI's Cybercrime Division had received an automated alert. And by 11:50 a.m., Titan Corp was under federal lockdown. But here's the thing. What happened after that lockdown wasn't what I expected. Because as they led Mark away in cuffs, one of the federal agents looked straight at me and said something that made my blood run cold. "Mr. Cole, we need to talk. You're not as innocent in this as you think." The sound of those words hit harder than the day I got fired. "You're not as innocent in this as you think." I froze. The agent's voice was sharp, calm, and terrifying. Before I could even react, 2 officers grabbed my arms and led me toward the corner of the glass conference room. Cameras were still flashing outside, investors shouting, chaos everywhere. I could feel every heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Wait, what are you talking about?" I asked, trying to sound calm, but my voice cracked. Agent Ramirez, that's what his badge said, leaned close and whispered, "We've been monitoring Titan Corp for 6 months. Your system audit just triggered something big. Something you built." "What do you mean, something I built?" I said, confused. He showed me his tablet screen. There was my code, my security architecture, the same one I'd created to protect Titan Corp servers. But now it was being linked to an offshore data laundering network in Dubai. My code had been used for crimes I didn't commit. My stomach dropped. "That's impossible," I muttered. "Then maybe you should tell us who had access," Ramirez said. I thought fast. Only 2 people ever had full access besides me, Mark and his CFO, Travis Blake. Travis was slick, always hiding behind a smile and designer suits. He'd been Mark's right-hand man during the buyout, handling the money side while I handled the tech. I trusted him once. That trust was my biggest mistake. Ramirez's tone hardened. "You'll have to come with us, Mr. Cole." The next thing I knew, I was in the back of a black Federal SUV, my wrists cuffed, watching my company disappear through the tinted window. Reporters were outside yelling my name now, not as a hero, but as a suspect. By 1 p.m., I was sitting in an interrogation room at the FBI field office in downtown Chicago. The air was cold. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Across from me sat Agent Ramirez and another woman, Agent Lewis. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were screenshots, transaction IDs, and my signature, digitally stamped, on accounts I had never seen. "You use your software to move over $40 million into offshore accounts," Lewis said flatly. "That's a lie." I barked. "I didn't move anything. Mark and Travis must have." "Then prove it," Ramirez interrupted. I closed my eyes. I could still hear Sarah's voice from this morning before I left for work. "Whatever happens today, promise me you'll come home safe." If only I knew how bad the day would get. I leaned forward. "I can prove it, but I need my laptop." Lewis frowned. "It's evidence now." "Then give me 10 minutes on any system. I'll show you the trace logs." Every illegal transfer came from Travis's terminal. The 2 agents exchanged glances. Ramirez finally said, 5 minutes. "And if this is a trick, you'll regret it." They brought in a federal secured laptop. My hands trembled as I typed, lines of code flying across the screen. I dug into encrypted logs I'd secretly stored in a private cloud. Each keystroke uncovered the truth. Then there was a match. Travis's ID, accessing restricted folder from Mark's office just 24 hours before the buyout. Time-stamped. Signed. Verified. "See," I said, spinning the laptop around. "It's them. They use my system to cover their dirty transfers." Ramirez's eyes widened. He whispered something to Lewis, who immediately left the room with the laptop. I finally exhaled, thinking maybe it was over. But then Ramirez leaned closer and said quietly, "You just open a door you can't close, Ethan. You have no idea who's really behind this." Before I could ask what he meant, Lewis rushed back in, pale-faced. She whispered something to him, and he looked at me with disbelief. "What happened?" I asked. Ramirez's jaw tightened. "Your wife, Sarah, she's missing." I felt the room spin. "What do you mean, missing?" "She never came to pick up your daughter from school, and her phone's been off for over 2 hours. The world around me blurred. I slammed my cuffed fist on the table. "You have to find her." Ramirez stood. "Ethan, if you want us to find your family, you'll have to tell us everything about what you did this morning before the lockdown." My throat went dry. I knew exactly what he was asking about. The part of the system I hadn't told anyone about. I stared at Agent Ramirez, my pulse racing. "I told you everything," I said quietly, but even I could hear the lie in my voice. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "No, you didn't. You triggered a full system lockdown that sent our cyber units into chaos. You didn't just report Titan Corp's crimes. Ethan, you crippled federal servers linked to the buyout." I swallowed hard. That wasn't supposed to happen. Ramirez slammed his hand on the table. "Then tell me what was supposed to happen." I took a shaky breath. The truth was, when I activated the audit script that morning, I didn't just expose Titan Corp's dirty money. I activated a failsafe, a digital bomb I built years ago to destroy any data tied to my software in case someone tried to steal it. It was my last line of defense. I never imagined it would trigger during a federal buyout. I just wanted to erase my work from their system. I whispered. Ramirez shook his head. Well, congratulations, Mr. Cole. You didn't just erase their system. You erased ours too. And now we have missing data worth hundreds of millions of dollars. My body went cold. But none of that mattered when I remembered Sarah, my wife, my anchor, missing. I slammed my fists against the table again. Forget the data. Find my wife. Please. Ramirez exhaled deeply. We're trying, Ethan. But right now, we have to figure out if her disappearance is connected to Titan Corp or to you. That last part broke me. I'd spent years protecting everyone else's systems, yet I couldn't even protect my own family. They left me alone in the interrogation room for nearly 2 hours. The silence was torture. I could see my reflection in the one-way mirror. Messy hair, dark circles under my eyes, the look of a man being pulled apart by guilt and fear. Finally, the door opened. A younger agent walked in, holding a phone. You need to see this, he said. He placed the phone in front of me and hit play. It was security footage, grainy. Timestamp 11:02 a.m. Sarah's car, parked outside Lily's school. Then 2 black SUVs pulled up behind her. A man in a gray suit got out, walked to her window, and said something. She hesitated, then got out of the car and followed him. The SUVs drove away. I leaned forward, my throat tightening. Pause it. Zoom in on his face. When they did, my blood froze. It was Travis Blake, that snake, that smiling, perfect CFO, the man I'd once called my brother in business. He has her, I whispered. He took Sarah. Ramirez stepped closer. You sure? I bet my life on it. He nodded slowly. Then you better start talking, Ethan, because right now Travis Blake is untouchable. The only reason we haven't arrested him is because half the investors in Titan Corp are tied to him. But if you give us proof, we can move. I already did. I snapped. The logs, the timestamps. That's not enough. We need hard evidence. Something that ties him directly to the offshore accounts. I hesitated. I knew exactly where that evidence was. But it wasn't any server or cloud. It was on an encrypted external drive. The same drive Mark had locked inside his private vault at Titan Corp HQ. Ramirez read my silence. You know where it is. Yes, I said, trembling. But it's inside the building. He raised an eyebrow. You mean the building currently under federal lockdown? I nodded. If I don't get that drive, you'll never find Sarah, and Travis will walk free. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ramirez muttered something under his breath and grabbed his coat. You're insane, he said, but you might be our only shot. Within an hour, I was back in a black SUV, wrists still cuffed, heading straight toward Titan Corp's headquarters, now surrounded by agents, crime tape, and news vans. The skyline was fading into a gray afternoon haze, the world outside moving in slow motion. As we approached, I saw the familiar glass tower standing tall, silent, sealed off. It felt strange, walking back into the place that had once been my second home, the place that fired me, betrayed me, and now might hold the key to saving my family. Inside, the air was tense. Computers were still frozen, screens flashing, lockdown active. Agents moved through cubicles with flashlights, tagging evidence. Ramirez led me down the hall toward Mark's office. This is where the drive should be, I whispered. We reached the vault. Heavy steel, fingerprint protected. I guided Ramirez through the bypass code I'd once built for emergency access. The vault clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, hard drives, and a single black briefcase. I pointed to it. That's it. Ramirez carefully opened it, revealing the encrypted drive. Just as I remembered, relief washed over me, but only for a second, because right behind that briefcase was something else, a bloodstain, fresh, and next to it, a Titan Corp ID card. It was Mark Daniels. Ramirez looked at me, eyes wide. Ethan, looks like your CO didn't just get arrested. He turned toward the hall, shouting for backup, but before anyone could respond, the lights went out, and in the darkness, I heard a voice I'd hoped I'd never hear again. "Miss me, Ethan?" It was Travis. The voice came from the far corner of the dark hallway, smooth, mocking, and terrifyingly calm. "Miss me, Ethan?" I froze. Ramirez drew his gun instantly, shouting, "FBI!" Step into the light. A faint glow flickered from the emergency lights, just enough to reveal him. Travis Blake, standing tall in his gray suit, his tie loosened, a pistol glinting in his right hand. His face looked calm, too calm. "Put the gun down, Travis." Ramirez barked. Travis smirked. "Always a hero, Agent. I see you brought my old partner in crime." His eyes landed on me. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. "What did you do with my wife?" I shouted. He tilted his head. "Relax, Ethan. Sarah's fine for now, but that depends on how well you behave." I stepped forward. "You touch her, and I swear I'll—" He cut me off with a laugh. "You'll what? Hack me? Please. You've done enough damage already. Because of you, the entire buyout collapsed. Do you have any idea how much that cost us?" "Us?" I spat. "You mean you and Mark?" His expression darkened. Mark was weak. He wanted to confess. So I handled it. Ramirez's jaw tightened. "Handled? You mean you killed him?" Travis's grin widened. "Killed is such a heavy word. Let's just say Mark made an early exit, very early." The blood stain near the vault suddenly made perfect sense. My stomach twisted. "You murdered him," I said quietly. "You murdered him to keep your secret." "Secret?" he said, stepping closer, his voice low and venomous. "You think you know the game, Ethan? You were just a brain. The puppet. You built the system, but I own the board." I clenched my fists. "Then why take Sarah? She has nothing to do with this." "She's leverage," he said flatly. "Because if I go down, I'm not going alone." Ramirez took a step forward, aiming directly at Travis's chest. "Drop the weapon, Blake. It's over." Travis smirked. "Over? Oh, Agent, it's just getting started." Suddenly, the building lights flickered again, then died completely. The alarms began to wail. My audit script had reactivated itself. The lockdown system I built was rebooting. Ramirez cursed. "He's triggering something." I grabbed a flashlight from his belt and shone it toward Travis, but he was gone. Only the echo of his footsteps remained. "Damn it!" Ramirez shouted, running after him. "Stay here, Ethan." But I didn't. I couldn't. Sarah's life depended on finding him. I sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding, the flashlight beam shaking in my hands. Every corner felt like a trap, every sound like a threat. My mind raced with what Travis had said, because if I go down, I'm not going alone. I reached the elevator shaft. Doors pried open. A maintenance ladder stretched into the darkness below. My gut told me he went down there. "Ramirez!" I shouted. "He's in the basement." We climbed down quickly. The lower floors were silent, filled with server racks and humming machines. But the hum was wrong, too loud, too chaotic. Then I saw it. One of the main servers had been wired to a small, blinking device. "Oh no," I whispered. Ramirez aimed his flashlight at it. "What the hell is that?" "It's a thermal detonator," I said slowly. "He's going to destroy the servers and everyone inside this floor." Before we could react, a voice echoed through the basement speakers. "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan, you just never know when to quit, do you?" It was Travis, his voice coming from the intercom. "You built a system so perfect it could hide sins in plain sight. And now, you'll die inside your own creation." Ramirez started calling for backup on his radio, but the signal was jammed. I rushed to the control panel. My fingers flew across the keys, trying to override the detonation protocol. "Can you stop it?" Ramirez shouted. "I'm trying." I yelled back, "But he's encrypted it, using my own code." Every passing second felt like an eternity. Sweat poured down my face. The timer on the screen began counting down 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Ramirez looked at me. "Ethan, we have to move." "I can't. If I leave, the whole floor goes up." "Then tell me what to do." I turned to him, desperate. "Find the main breaker. Cut power to the servers. It'll stop the chain reaction. If we're lucky." He sprinted toward the far wall. I stayed at the terminal, frantically typing, praying. My hands shook so badly I could barely hit the right keys. The countdown hit 1 minute and 20 seconds. Come on. I muttered. "Work." Then, just as the timer reached 58 seconds, the lights flickered again, and everything went black. For a second, I thought it was over. Then, faintly, I heard Ramirez's voice echo through the dark. I cut the power. Relief hit me so hard my knees gave out, but the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It was wrong, because somewhere in the dark, a faint beat continued, steady, slow, and getting louder. "Oh my God," I whispered. "There's a second bomb." Ramirez turned toward me, flashlight trembling. "Where?" he asked. Before I could answer, a deafening explosion ripped through the lower floor, throwing both of us to the ground. Fire tore through the walls. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Travis's face on one of the security screens, smiling. When I opened my eyes, everything was smoke and fire. The world buzzed in my ears, a high-pitched ringing that blurred the line between dream and nightmare. My lungs burned. I tried to move, but pain tore through my shoulder. A shard of glass had buried itself deep in my arm. I groaned, coughing, the smell of burnt metal choking me. My vision flickered between red and black. The basement was in ruins. Wires melted, servers toppled, flames licking the walls. And beside me, half buried under debris, was Agent Ramirez. "Ramirez!" I shouted, crawling toward him. His body was pinned by a steel beam, his face bloody but alive. He blinked slowly, trying to focus. "You alive?" he rasped. "Barely," I muttered, pulling at the beam with trembling hands. "Hold on, I'll get you out." He gritted his teeth. "Forget me, Cole. Get out of here before it collapses." "I'm not leaving you." I snapped. He gave a weak smile. "That's what got you into this mess. Loyalty." The floor above us groaned loudly, metal twisting, concrete cracking. But I didn't stop. I used every ounce of strength left, pushing the beam just enough for him to slide out. We both collapsed to the ground, coughing. That's when I noticed it. Lying next to him, half melted but intact. The encrypted drive. I grabbed it. The drive survived. Ramirez forced a nod. "Good. Because if you're right about Travis, that thing's a key to everything." He coughed hard, blood trickling down his chin. "You have to finish this, Ethan. Find your wife. End this." "Don't talk like that," I said quickly. "You're coming with me." He shook his head. "No. Go." And then the floor cracked again. The sound was like thunder. I barely had time to grab the drive and dive for cover before the ceiling came crashing down. When I looked back, Ramirez was gone. My chest caved in, but I had no time to grieve. The heat was unbearable now. Flames everywhere. I crawled toward the maintenance tunnel and forced myself through, clutching the drive to my chest. Every inch forward was agony. My body screamed to stop, but my mind kept replaying Sarah's face, her smile, her laugh. I had to get to her. I emerged outside through a ventilation shaft, collapsing in the cold evening air. Sirens blared in the distance. Fire trucks. Police. Reporters. Chaos. I didn't wait. I ran, bleeding, limping, half-conscious, straight toward the nearest subway entrance. I needed to disappear. If Travis was alive, he'd be watching every move I made. By the time I reached my apartment, it was nearly midnight. The door was slightly open. My stomach twisted. I stepped inside slowly, my hand trembling around the kitchen knife I'd picked up from the hallway. The lights were off. The air was silent. Then a sound, a soft hum. My daughter's voice. "Daddy." My heart nearly stopped. "Lily?" I rushed to her room. She was sitting on the floor, her eyes wide, clutching her teddy bear. "Daddy, there was a man here," she whispered. I knelt beside her, my voice shaking. "Where's Mommy?" Her lip trembled. "He said Mommy went with him to fix something. He said you'd know what that means." My blood turned to ice. You'd know what that means. Travis's words, always riddled with hidden meanings. Fix something. He was mocking me. He wanted me to find him. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "Miss me, partner?" It was him. That same slick voice, calm and cruel. "Where's Sarah?" I shouted. He chuckled softly. "She's alive. For now. But time's running out, Ethan. You've taken something that belongs to me." "The drive?" I said. "Oh, good. You do have it." His tone shifted, sharper now. "Then we can still make a deal. Bring it to the old Titan Corp data center on Lakeview at 2 a.m. Come alone. If I see anyone else, Sarah dies first." The call cut off. I stood there, trembling. My heart was beating so loud it drowned everything else out. I looked at Lily, scared, small, her eyes filled with tears. I knelt down and cupped her face. "Listen to me, baby. Daddy has to go fix something, okay? Just like Mommy. But I'm coming back. I promise." "Are you going to get Mommy?" she whispered. I forced a smile. "Yes, I'm bringing her home." I kissed her forehead, tucked her in, and called Sarah's sister to pick her up. Then I grabbed my laptop to drive and Ramirez's handgun, still tucked in my jacket. By 1:58 a.m., I was outside the abandoned data center. The place looked dead. Cold steel, broken windows, and the faint hum of old generators. But I knew Travis. Nothing he did was random. As I stepped inside, the lights flickered on automatically, one by one, illuminating a long, narrow hallway leading to the main server room. At the end of it, there she was, Sarah. She was tied to a chair, a bruise on her temple, tears streaking her face. My heart broke at the sight of her. "Sarah," I shouted, rushing forward. But before I could reach her, a voice echoed from behind me. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." I turned. Travis stood there, alive, unburned, and smiling, holding a detonator in one hand and a gun in the other. "Welcome to the end game, Ethan," he said softly. "You have what I want. And I have what you can't live without." The room went silent. My grip tightened on the gun in my jacket. One wrong move, and I'd lose everything. Travis smiled like the man who thought he already won. The detonator hung from his fingers like a toy. The gun was steady. Sarah's tied hand shook. Lily's face flashed in my mind, and everything narrowed to one thin, hot line of purpose. "Listen to me, Travis," I said, keeping my voice low. "You don't have to do this. Walk away. Take what you still have and go." He laughed. "And leave the money? Leave the power? You're funny, Ethan. You built the system that made me untouchable. You ruined it. Now you'll watch it all burn." He didn't see the slight movement I'd made with my left hand. Ramirez's gun, still tucked in my jacket, was aimed now under my sleeve. I had a plan that was more than a bluff. Before coming, while crawling through the ventilation shaft, I had used Ramirez's radio to trigger a quiet ping to every agent's device I could reach. If I didn't answer any call within 5 minutes, it would flag the data center as hostile and show my last known GPS. They were close. I just needed time. 2 minutes. I told him. Walk toward the door. Drop the detonator. You walk out, you live. My voice didn't shake. He stepped. His eyes flicked the drive in my hand. That drive was a fulcrum of everything. Transaction logs, names, offshore accounts, and the short video Mark had recorded the night he finally wanted to confess. Mark's voice was on that disk, raw and scared, naming Travis and the investors. I copied it to a dozen places. I'd also made sure 2 newsrooms in the Department of Justice had encrypted copies tied to a timed release if anything happened to me. Travis didn't know it yet. "You think you can blackmail me with old footage?" he sneered. "You think anyone will care?" I hit the small button on the back of the drive. A soft tone confirmed the upload. The files were leaving my hands and going everywhere. I saw the color drain from his face. "You'll never touch my family," I said. "Not now. Not ever." He panicked. He lunged. The gun fired. The sound ripped the air. Pain flared in my shoulder, and I tasted copper, but I didn't go down. I moved on instinct. I shoved the table, knocked the briefcase with the remains of his control gear, and the detonator skittered across the floor. Travis lunged to grab it. That instant there were boots. So many boots. The FBI slammed through the door. Ramirez was there, bleeding but alive. His face was carved with exhaustion and something like peace. He tackled Travis. Other agents swarmed, and within seconds the weapons were out of their hands. The detonator was stomped, the timer smashed. Someone shouted that the scheduled downloads had already begun, encrypted packets feeding to DOJ servers and to 2 national newsrooms. Within minutes, headlines would go live. Even if Travis tried to disappear, the paper trail could not be erased. They cuffed him. He screamed. He begged. He tried to bargain. No one listened. I rushed to Sarah, cutting ropes with shaking hands. She stared at me like I'd come back from the dead. I lifted her up, and she clung to me, her body a burning relief. Behind us, agents were escorting Lily's teacher. She followed agents to my apartment after blast. Lily was safe with her aunt. I held Sarah and heard my daughter's laugh on the radio. Alive, safe. Later, in the cold, sterile light of the field office, they read charges to Travis. Murder for Mark, kidnapping, money laundering, wire fraud. The list went on. The drive's records were clean, time-stamped, and backed up by independent third parties. The DOJ moved faster than I expected. Investors were subpoenaed. Accounts were frozen. Names that had felt untouchable trembled on paper. They asked me for a statement. I gave them everything. My code, my mistake, the failsafe, the drive, my regret. Ramirez listened. He never blamed me. He pressed a hand onto my shoulder like an old friend. Later, I learned the truth. Ramirez hadn't made it through the secondary blast unscathed. He had held the line long enough for the upload to complete and for my path to the drive to be possible. He died quietly in the hospital that night. I forgave him in every prayer I whispered in the dark. Travis went to trial. The court moved fast with all the evidence in place. He was convicted on every count, sentenced to life. The investors were fined, indicted, or quietly stripped of power. Titan Corp dissolved into lawsuits and settlements. My name was cleared in the papers. They called me a whistleblower, a hero, a criminal, and then just a man who'd made a terrible, necessary choice. I walked away from corporate life. The money was gone, the company was ashes, but the people I loved were alive. Sarah and Lily and I moved to a quieter town. I started a small security consultancy, this time transparent, ethical, and with no board to sell out our work. Every night, I watched Lily sleep and felt the weight of everything that happened lightening just a little. I still carry scars, physical and otherwise. I still think of Mark and the life we lost. I still see Ramirez's last tired smile. But I also remember the moment I held Sarah and Lily at dawn, smelling the smoke and the rain and feeling, finally, like I had taken back what mattered. Revenge tasted hollow at first, but justice, cold, slow, and certain, tasted like something I could live with. I had been fired at 9:50 a.m., watched a $240 million buyout collapse, and walked into a storm. I'd come out bleeding, but I had my family. That was the end of the war. And now I keep the drive locked away, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Never again.